Peace, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bashim Yahushai, Bashim Rakakudash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, who I learned this truth from the rule well. Peace and salutations to the 144,000 and the rest of the 1/3. The Lord's multitude unto you, I say shalom. Come to you back with another lesson through the Spirit. And the title for this was going to be, The Truth Keeps You Stable in These Times. And what times are we in? We're in the last days. The last days of the last days. And you can see it throughout the different events going around throughout the planet Earth, from these Trump tariffs, he's imposing on all these different countries, to the inflation getting higher and higher. The economy just keeps on getting worse, on the brink of a collapse. And you can see it on these people's faces that they're through. They're done. The hope that they had in America to somehow go back to its glory days, they see that, there's really no hope left. But they're grasping on some kind of illusion that somehow it could be restored. But us that have been given this knowledge, wisdom, and understanding by Yahweh Shai know that this place is going to be destroyed. And these people can feel it, even though somehow they hope that America's going to go back to its glory days, is not. And that's why you can see it in their faces. They're through, on a day-to-day basis. I look at these people's faces, just how their countenance is, and they have that countenance that, they're done, they're through. You can see it in their face. They're in that sorrowful spirit, but ultimately they're in that sorrowful spirit because this place is falling, not because they want to be delivered out of America, because the ones who can only be delivered out of America are going to be the elect, the 1/3 of the nation of Israel. They're comprised of these so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, and Israelite foreigners. They may look like the heathen, but ultimately this truth resonates within their spirit. The rest of our people, the 2/3 of the nation of Israel, they want this place to continue. And these heathens, they're going to be left here to burn. But the elect will be delivered out of here, speedily. The rest of these people, they're going to get destroyed because ultimately they put their trust, they put their hope in this place. That's why they're not stable right now. They're losing all their marbles. They're losing the little hope that they have left because they were expecting Donald Trump to somehow make America great again, but he's doing the complete opposite. He's destroying it by putting all these tariffs on all these countries, only making the price of goods, groceries, rent go up higher and higher. So that's not a good sign for the economy, because things are only going to get worse. They're not going to get better. And that's why these people, they're losing that little hope that they have left. You can see it in their countenance. You can see it in their faces. You can see it, on a day-to-day basis from the jobs you work at, or, you're out running errands. You can see that this place is done for, just by the way these people are moving, by the way, they're conducting themselves. Because a lot of them, they're putting up an act that everything's okay, cracking jokes all the damn time. But ultimately, they're laughing and cracking jokes to so-called ease the tension, because they know that this place is done, that it's one event away or two events away from collapsing and all hell breaking loose. And ultimately, they have no hope. But us that has been given this knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, we know that this isn't a end-all be-all. That there's something better coming, which is the kingdom of heaven being established on the planet Earth, where righteousness is going to be pushed out throughout the four corners of the earth, where finally righteousness is going to rule the planet Earth. Because right now, the planet Earth is being ruled in wickedness by this devil Esau, Edom, the self-proclaimed white man. That's why the whole earth is in groaning. That's why when the righteous bear rule, the people rejoice. But when the wicked bear rule, the people mourn. And that's the state that these people are in. Even us in this knowledge, wisdom, understanding, we're mourning, but we know that we got something better coming. That's why this knowledge, wisdom, and understanding keeps us stable in these dire times that we're in. The rest of the people, they're through. They have no hope. This is Isaiah chapter 33 and verse 6. And wisdom and knowledge shall be the stability of thy times, and strength of salvation. The fear of the Lord, Yahweh Bashim Yahushai, is his treasure. And this is what's keeping us stable, this truth, this knowledge, wisdom, and understanding that was given by Yahweh Bashim Yahushai from up on high, from the heavens. And we have that hope, we have that faith that we'll be delivered out of here. Lord willing, we're a part of that number, and we endure till the end. That we'll be delivered out of this situation we're in, out of this captivity, under this slavery, under this devil, Esau, Edom, the self-proclaimed white man. Because ultimately we know that this isn't living, this isn't life. You constantly have to work these jobs, go to these 9-to-5s, pay these taxes, eat these GMO foods, drink this polluted ass water. This isn't living. But we have the hope of something better, which is the kingdom of heaven. The rest of these people, they don't have no hope. They're through. That's why they're not stable. They're losing their minds. They're losing all their marbles. The love of many is waxing cold. They're all ticking time bombs, just one event away from they're just losing their minds completely. Us that have been given his knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, we're stable through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashim Yahushai Bashim Kakodash. The rest of these people, they're gone, they're through, especially 2/3 of the nation of Israel. They're only waxing worse and worse and worse. And it's only going to get worse because this place doesn't have anything in store for the nation of Israel. That's why ultimately this devil, Esau, Edom, the self-proclaimed white man, is going to come down with that great wrath, because he knows that his kingdom has but a short time. That's why we've been given the eye salve to see that this place is going to be destroyed, but eventually we have something better coming. This place has to fall for the kingdom of heaven to be established. This is 2 Thessalonians chapter 1 and verse 7. And to you who are troubled, rest with us when the Lord Yahweh Shai shall be revealed from heaven with his mighty angels. And we're troubled, but ultimately we have that rest through Yahweh Bashim Yahushai, through the Comforter. The rest of these people, they don't have that. They don't have the Comforter. The comforts that they have, they're of this world, but they're only instant gratification. They only comfort them for so long till they look for that next high, for that next dose of dopamine through drugs, alcohol, sex, and all types of different lewd acts, forms of fulfilling the lust of the flesh that only comforts them for so long till they need that next hit. That's why ultimately when all these comforts, all the dainties of Babylon the Great, which is America, when people lose their jobs, when they have the bread and circus taken away, internet, social media, they're going to completely lose their minds, because that's all these people have. They have bread and circus, they have Netflix, they have fast food, social media, TikTok. But when all that gets taken away, they're going to lose their minds. They don't have anything to really comfort them like this knowledge, wisdom, and understanding comforts the elect, like the fear of the Lord comforts the elect. The rest of these people, they're through, they're gone. They don't have the true comfort. This is Proverbs chapter 8 and verse 11. For wisdom is better than rubies, and all the things that may be desired are not to be compared to it. So this wisdom, which is the fear of the Lord, because the beginning of wisdom is the fear of the Lord, fearing Yahweh Bashim Yahushai, knowing what's to come upon the planet Earth and how to escape it. Ultimately having that covering under Yahweh Bashim Yahushai, having Yahweh Shai's blood cover us. The rest of these people, the 2/3 of the nation of Israel, they're not going to have that covering. They're not going to have that comfort. They're going to have to be destroyed ultimately for being rebellions against Yahweh Bashim Yahushai. But us, we've been given this knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. There's more pressure than rubies. Because a lot of these people, they're going to put their bets on their wealth, on their bunkers, on all the cans of food they stored up, on all the water they stored up, on the guns and ammo they stored up. But ultimately, that's not going to deliver them. That's not going to keep them comfortable. That's not going to give them comfort. Ultimately, that's a stumbling block so they can be destroyed, so they can be judged. Because ultimately the elect are laying up treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust do corrupt. The rest of the people, they're storing up treasures here on heaven. They're putting their eggs all in this basket, which is America, Babylon the Great, which is going to be destroyed by the way of fire, by the way of those intercontinental ballistic missiles. Ultimately, because right now, the men of the Lord, us of the hopeful elect, we're looked at as nothing. But we know in the upcoming times that we're going to be the most precious thing upon the planet Earth, where Isaiah 4:1 is going to take place. Because a lot of these people out here, these men, they're going to get sent to the battle of Armageddon, World War III. A lot of them are going to get put to death here in America through the Civil War, through the race war, through martial law, Jacob's trouble. So there's going to be only a few men left upon the earth. Like it says right here in Isaiah 13 and verse 12, and I will make a man more precious than fine gold, even a man than a golden wedge of Ophir. And that's how precious the men of the Lord, the true servants of Yahweh Bashim Yahushua, are going to be worth. They're going to be more precious than a gold of Ophir. And a lot of people, they're going to be seeking for the men of the Lord. They're going to be seeking to get the knowledge, wisdom, and understanding when it's too late. But ultimately, those doors of mercy, the doors of repentance, the grace period will be done away with. And the only thing that's going to be speaking is the judgment of Yahweh Bashim Yahushua. That's what's going to be speaking. Because when they had the time to get right, when they had the time to gather up that oil, to get right with the Heavenly Father, they were out here bullshitting. They were putting their trust in man. They were putting their trust in Egypt, going down to Egypt for help. Ultimately, that's going to lead them to get destroyed for not putting their trust in Yahweh Bashim Yahushua, for not leaning upon the wisdom of Yahweh Bashim Yahushua, for not leaning upon the fear of the Lord. This is Matthew chapter 13 and verse 9. Who had ears to hear, let him hear. Verse 10, and the disciples came and said unto him, why speakest thou them in parables? Verse 11, he answered and said unto them, because it is given to you to know the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven, but to them it is not given. So all these mysteries of the kingdom of heaven, they weren't given to 2/3 of the nation of Israel. That's why they're not comforted, because ultimately they don't have that hope for what's to come. They're not hoping for the city to come, because here we have no continuing city, but we seek one to come, which is going to be the kingdom of heaven. But the rest of the nation of Israel, the 2/3, they weren't given that comfort. They weren't given that hope. That's ultimately why they're through out here. They're not stable. They're losing their minds, and you can see it in their countenance, in their faces, the way they're moving. They know that this place is done, but ultimately they don't want to give that hope that Babylon is going to be healed. That's their hope. Their hope is that this place is going to be somehow be brought back to so-called glory. That rent is going to go back down to $500 a month. You're going to have 50-cent dozen eggs. You're going to have Taco Tuesday. And all the bread and circus and folly that the nation of Israel loves. That's ultimately why they're going to be left here to burn, because they want to continue in their folly. They want to continue to eat, marry, partying, and drink. Keep going to these clubs and these bars, and and they're in that party spirit, just like in the days of Lot, just like in the days of Noah. Those same people, those same wicked ass 2/3, they're back here today. And ultimately Yahweh Bashim Yahushua is going to do away with them, because they're not going to get it. Because it wasn't given unto them. That's why they're out here through. They're out here dry. They don't have no comfort. They don't have no legs to stand on. They're not stable. They're only waxing worse, and they're only gonna lose their mind more and more and more till all hell breaks loose. When all hell breaks loose, then they're really gonna lose it. A lot of them are gonna give up the spirit, go back to the spirit world, because they're not gonna understand what's happening. They're not gonna understand that is Yahweh Bashim Yahushua's judgment, that he's visiting the earth. This is Romans chapter 11 and verse 7. What then? Israel hath not obtained that which she seeketh for, but the election hath obtained it, and the rest were blinded. So ultimately the elect, the 1/3 of the nation of Israel, that's comprised of the 144,000, the rest of the 1/3, the large multitude, those were the ones who was given the knowledge, wisdom, and understanding to know what's going on around the earth. Why are things happening? Why are they, all these different pestilences, these different plagues are happening. Ultimately because it's Yahweh Shem Shai's will, because it's his plan. But the rest of these people out here, these 2/3 and these heathens, they don't know what's going on. They don't know why this place is being judged. Ultimately because it wasn't given unto them. It was only given unto the elect of the nation of Israel. The rest of these people out here, they're through. They're not stable. They don't have the comfort. Ultimately because Yahweh Shem Shai is not dealing with them, because it wasn't given unto them to receive the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven. That's why a lot of these Israelites out here, these so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, they're constantly in these churches, these Christian churches, these Roman Catholic churches, these Islam temples, to try to seek that comfort, but ultimately they don't really have it. That's false. That feel-good message that they preach in the churches, that prosperity doctrine is all bullshit, and it's all gonna come to naught, because ultimately Yahweh Shem Shai wasn't with that. But that's pretty much the point. Pray this is edifying to the elect. I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Kakodash. Double honors to the apostles and elders, great millstone, who all learned this truth from them well. Peace and salutations to the 100.